The kind of bond we're going to start talking about is ionic. And I want to point out that the reason that it's called an ionic bond is because it forms between ions. So we're going to start out by just learning what an ion is. So by definition, an ion is an atom with a charge. So up until now, we've only talked about neutral atoms, but now we're going to look at what an atom looks like if it's not neutral. So there's two kinds of ions that we can have. We can have what we call cations. That's how that's pronounced, cation. And those are atoms with a positive charge. But we can also have what we call an anion. Anion, that's an atom with a negative charge. Easiest way for me to remember this is to think about it like this. Cats have paws, so cations have a positive charge. So now let's see how an atom becomes a cation. So here I have a carbon-12 atom. You can see it has 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. So let's go back up and remember that chemical bonds are formed by atoms taking, giving, or sharing electrons. And since we're talking about ionic bonds right now, we got to remember that those electrons are going to be transferred. So that's going to be the taking and giving of electrons. So basically when we're forming an ion, it's strictly having to do with those electrons going away or coming in. So a giving away or an accepting of electrons. So this is a neutral carbon atom, and the way we know that it's neutral is because if we count, we have 6 protons and we have 6 electrons. So if we have 6 positive things and 6 negative things, then the charge comes out to be 0. But let's see what happens to the charge if I take one of these electrons and take it away, so it's not there anymore. Now we still have 6 protons, but now we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 electrons. So if we have 6 positive things and 5 negative things, then our overall charge on the atom is going to be +1. So since this is a +1 charge, that makes this atom a cation. So what we can say is to form a cation, the atom has to lose electrons. So let's go back to our neutral carbon atom. So again, this one has 6 protons and 6 electrons. But this time, let's say instead of losing one of those electrons, let's say that atom gains an electron. If it gained an electron, that means we still have 6 protons, but now we have 7 electrons. So if we have 6 positive things and 7 negative things, then this atom is going to have an overall charge of -1, of -1, which makes it an anion. So what we can say about anions is that they form when atoms gain electrons. Now that we know what ions are, we can use that information to fill out this chart. So this looks a lot very similar to the one you had to do before, where we fill in protons, neutrons, and electrons, but this one is not going to have to do with neutrons, because remember, neutrons don't have a charge, so they don't have anything to do with our ions. But we do have to fill out our number of protons, number of electrons, what our charge is, and then what the element symbol with the charge would look like. So anytime an atom has a charge, we're going to write it as a superscript like this. So for this first example, we have a nitrogen atom with a charge of -3. So I'm going to make that -3 my superscript. You may see it written with the minus in front, or you may see it written with the minus in the back. It doesn't matter the order, you'll see it both ways. So let's look at the second example. We have the element rubidium, so that symbol is Rb, and the only information we have is the number of electrons. So we're going to have to use our periodic table to figure out our number of protons. Rubidium on the periodic table is number 37, so that means we're going to have 37 protons. So what that means is we have 37 positive charges and 36 negative charges. So we have more positive things than we do negative things. So that means our charge is going to be positive. And since it's only one more proton than electron, that's going to be a positive 1 charge. So our symbol would look like this. The third example tells us a number of protons, but not the element. So we're going to have to use the periodic table to look up the element number 38, which is strontium. Strontium is Sr. And it has 38 protons. We don't know how many electrons it has yet, but we know that it has an overall charge of positive 3. If it has a charge of positive 3, that means it's a cation, which means it has lost electrons. And since it's a charge of 3, that means it's lost 3 electrons. So if a neutral atom would have 38 protons and 38 electrons, the cation has lost 3 electrons. That means we must have 35 electrons. A quick way to check yourself is to think about if your charge is positive, you need to have more protons. And if your charge is negative, you need to have more electrons. So finish filling out the chart and then double check and make sure that that matches up.